Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Wade Watches. I'm Wade. Welcome to another awesome, fresh out of the movie theater review where, I need a moment because this was a long one, man. This was a long one. Doesn't mean it's bad, but it was a long one. It was the afternoon when I went in, and it's the evening. It's starting out dark outside when I came out. But anyway, I just got through watching Avatar: Fire and Ash in IMAX 3D, and I am happy to present to you my spoiler-free thoughts. So jumping right into it, let me firstly say I am a fan of the Avatar movies. I enjoy this franchise. I enjoy this universe. I understand that, yeah, it's any white man with a Native American movie in space. So yeah, if you're thinking Fern Gully, Dances with Wolves, Last of the Mohicans, Pocahontas, that was the one I almost forgot. You have a point. And also, yeah, the story is nothing mind-blowing because it's basically all those aforementioned movies, but in space with giant blue kitty cat people. I get it. I totally understand it. I admit that that's the case, but I enjoy these movies as visually pleasing, emotionally pleasing spectacles because I'll be goddamn if the first two movies didn't get me in the feels and get a tear out of me. So I've always enjoyed the Avatar movies for what they are, for what James Cameron intended them to be. And I'm happy to report that for the most part, Fire and Ash is no exception. I went into this film an Avatar fan, and I walked out of this film an Avatar fan, having thoroughly enjoyed myself for what it was. But it does have its shortcomings, which I will get into. But let's talk about what I enjoyed. Main thing is that everybody from the visual effects artists to the cast is still giving it their all. I genuinely believe that Pandora is real every time I step into that movie theater. I genuinely believe in these giant blue feline characters. They still manage to get me in the feels. Sam Worthington is great as always. Zoe Saldana is great as always. Not as familiar with the other cast members in here. I know Cliff Curtis has a part. David Thewlis is in this. CCH Pounder, I remember. All great, all really good, all doing their best to bring the Na'vi to life. Also the villains, Stephen Lang is really good. Don't know who plays the Fire Priestess, but she is really great as well. So it's just, it's still solid to watch. And also, even though it is generic, I enjoyed the story here in Fire and Ash a little bit more than Way of Water. I really do still enjoy Way of Water, but I felt like there were times where it just kind of like halted a little bit because it was, telling this fish out of water story where Sully and Sully family have to adapt to this water tribe. And there were moments that were just a little bit too slow for me. But this one definitely moves at a quicker pace where I simultaneously did feel the 3 hours, but didn't feel the 3 hours because it's like now that I'm walking out of the theater, I felt the 3 hours, but watching it, didn't really feel the 3 hours. But I will say I felt the 3 hours and Way of Water a little bit more. So I feel like this moves at a quicker pace. Something happens right away and it's like, okay, here we go. We have our movie. But getting into the negative, I will say this film commits the cardinal sin of not using this newly established hostile fire tribe of Na'vi properly. They kind of come in at a certain point, but then they kind of get like sidestepped, backstage a little bit. And I was like, you could have used them a bit more, could have explained a little bit more about them. They technically do have one scene where it's like, okay, this is their deal, but it wasn't enough in terms of character development. I really could have used a little bit more of them. So that was somewhat of a disappointment. That was somewhat of a letdown because when they came on, I was like, oh hell yeah, here we go. They are badass. They are awesome. Not that I didn't like Stephen Lang as the villain, but it's always the same villain. So adding a new threat really could have bought this all around, but I just felt like they didn't really get a lot of screen time or development, which was disappointing because this is almost a 4-hour movie. Second gripe, I will say they literally, and it's even kind of like meta in the way they do it, where they're like, yeah, we know we've done this before, but there's a montage in this film that's straight up copied and pasted from the first film, where it's like, okay, you're really doing this again. And again, even you yourself acknowledge that you're doing this again. And I was like, I was just kind of like, come on, James, come on, Jim. You also wrote this. This could have been handled a little bit better. You didn't have to literally copy and paste. But other than that, yeah, what else can I say? I thoroughly enjoyed this one. I like the quicker pace. I like the characters a little bit more in this one. Again, I'd say in A Way of Water, when we're introduced to his family, it just kind of felt like, so you have a family now. But this one, we really do get more character development. There are some very powerful moments with the Sully family and some of the other Navi that I did enjoy, that did make me more, more attached to these characters versus when they first came on in Way of Water. So in that regard, in regards of like character development, people learning lessons, growing, getting those emotional beats out of me, Fire and Ash is a bit superior to Way of Water. But in regards to overall story, especially with how the antagonist is handled, the newly introduced antagonist, not Stephen Lang, who's returning once again, it does kind of detract from it all, because they were doing such a good job when they came on. She's a total badass when she has something to do, and I just feel like she just wasn't given enough to do ultimately. And I am kind of like, but it's almost 4 hours. She couldn't do more, and the resolution with her was just kind of like, I don't buy that. No. With everything you've established, I don't think that would go down that way, but it did. So, other than that, not much to say about this one. If you absolutely hate these movies, if you're incredibly pissed at James Cameron for not making more Terminator films or any original films, this is not going to win you over. You're going to go in, you're going to trash it for all the same reasons that you trashed the first two, and you're going to say, yeah, what the fuck, James Cameron, what's your obsession with the giant blue space kitty cats? But if you're like me, if you enjoy these movies for what they're meant to be, just these kind of emotional journeys that are also visual multi-million-dollar spectacles meant to be viewed on the biggest screens possible, I think you'll have a good time with Fire and Ash. And again, don't take my word for it. Like, I absolutely love Pacific Rim. It's one of my all-time favorite movies, but that movie is stupid as hell. But it's because it's just this visually pleasing giant monster movie that does not at all have a deep story. It's because of that I'm able to enjoy it. And I guess that the Avatar movies are no different. I know that they don't have the deepest stories, but for what they are, for what they present, I am able to get on board with it. And they do get me in the feels. This one kind of did, but there weren't tears like there were in the first one, but it still kind of got me in the feels. So wrapping it up, I'm going to go ahead and give Avatar, Fire and Ash a solid 9 out of 10. If you see it in IMAX 3D. In IMAX 3D, it is absolutely a 9 out of 10. I felt like I was in Pandora the whole time. It's still beautiful to behold. However, if you see it in any other format, I feel like even just like standard 3D, it's more of an 8.5 out of 10. Like if I rewatch this while it's still in theaters and like Dolby or regular 3D, it's probably going to be like an 8 out of 10 or an 8.5 out of 10, just because, again, I can't look past those two flaws. I feel like with that first film, even though the story was pretty flat, I was able to enjoy it as just like this emotional journey where you're doing the white man with the natives thing again, but you put a pretty interesting spin on it. But this one doesn't get off so easily, because we've already seen that journey before. Now we're on a new one, and you introduce this new threat and you barely do anything with it. I can't really forgive that, but I still thoroughly enjoyed this movie overall. So it's a solid 9 out of 10 in IMAX 3D, but in any other format, it's an 8.5 out of 10 for Avatar, Fire and Ash. This has been another edition of Wave Watches, and I'll see you lovely cinephiles next time. Have you seen Avatar, Fire and Ash? If you have, feel free to let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you lovely people next time. Peace.